let me start with something that might sound philosophical, but I think it's really important. It's at the level of accepting that we can't know or we cannot predict. You know, it's a very deep-seated assumption of people who've existed in a business world and in a planning environment where they've almost taken it for granted that, yes, you can make statements about the future and you can prove them to be true or false through analysis and research and all of that. So in some sense, there is the ability to predict. Different organizations might be good or bad at it, but nobody questions the fact that the future can be known. You know, the common assumption now is that, yes, it's scary for a lot of us, but there are geniuses out in the world like the late Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or this person, and they know. And if we all just figured out the best practice or the genius practice, we'd all be okay. But I think it actually works the other way around. I think to the extent, and I'm not convinced that these people can see the future or predict the future, they're essentially stating their wishes for the future. Yeah, which is the rest of the world sort of mistakes that is like, oh, that's the world, that's where the world is going because the guy said that and he's in a position of power. But there's no more validity to it than saying like that's an expression of his desirable future. But what about the rest of us? What about the rest of us that exist in very different settings and organizations? So I think as the first step, accepting the fact that you can't predict the future, you cannot predict the future, puts you in a very different state of mind, puts the organization in a very different state of consciousness about how to go forward. And that can lead to, Gopi brought these things up, right? That can lead to questions about what business am I in? What's my purpose? Which is a question you think that businesses would ask all the time or organizations would ask all the time or constantly or on a periodic basis and kind of renew. In my experience, it never happens because it feels like, well, we all kind of know, it's obvious, we do it every day. So why even remind ourselves of why? But I think over time, especially for established organizations that have been around for a while, that sense of why gets lost. You know, and most people tend to define the organization, but the how or the what. So in terms of, you know, people talk about their jobs as doing a certain process within an organization or a function or making a certain product. They don't talk about their work in terms of what the user gets from what this business offers. You know, so nobody says a consumer packaging company that caters to mothers' needs or young children's needs. Nobody says, I'm in the business of helping mothers or making mothers' lives easier. That's not how they define what they do, right? They say, I make baby talcum powder, or I work in, you know, some manufacturing, or I do plastic bottles, whatever it is that they do. And I'm giving you a personal example, but at an organizational level, that sense of why they exist gets lost too. So that's one question you can re-ask if you accept that you don't know what the future is going to look like. This question sort of comes up naturally at all levels of the organization, not just in the C-suite. Similarly, the search for new approaches. So how do we go about figuring out where we want to go? And that also brings in a more participatory approach. You know, I think people in leadership find themselves almost forced to involve other people, where it's not a natural instinct sometimes, and it can lead to very good outcomes outside of the strategy realm, just in terms of morale, how people feel involved in the organization. But I'll stop there because I think I wanted to emphasize that shift in mindset of accepting that the future is so volatile that prediction is just not an option anymore.
Gopi, can we hear your views on this?
Yeah, I think Manoj kind of covered most parts. I just like to add a few shades around it. Firstly, I think there used to be a time when we talked about how your weakest link, you're as good as your weakest link. Now I have a different take. I think wherever the organization is soft, that's your strength. That's where you're nimble. Wherever your organization is strong, deeply embedded, deeply entrenched, that's your weakness. So you're not going to pivot from deeply embedded positions. So if I was heading an organization, my point would be that I would like to be soft in as many positions as I can. So pivoting is very easy. The more deeply entrenched I am with my revenue model, product model, innovation process, that's where the shortcoming is going to come. Maybe 10 years back, we talked about core competency, deeply entrenching. I think sometimes that can just come back and haunt us. So we need to be very good at what we're doing, You we need to be very soft and nimble, like any sport that you take, okay? And where you train for the structure, but when the moment comes, your body is ready to do whatever it wants. So can I build an organization like that? Manoj, you want to say something?
Absolutely, Gopi. Your metaphors are very rich and just bringing up a lot of things for me. So one of the ways, if people prefer another way of coming at the same thing Gopi said, he was talking about the soft parts of the organization and the strong parts. I could voice the very same thought, but I'll give you a different metaphor, if you will. The core of the organization and the edges of the organization. Exactly the same thing that Gopi said. Leaders typically tend to look at the core of the organization, and the periphery or the edges are the edges for a reason, right? I'll give you a concrete example. Nobody thinks of waste disposal. Let's say a typical manufacturing concern. Nobody thinks of waste disposal as a core function, yeah? In an era of sustainability, that assumption is going to get shaken up. It already is getting shaken up. And there are companies that have discovered new revenue streams that might be the core of their future growth, coming from how waste is now a utility for somebody else or for some other process, because they're having trouble handling the waste. So it starts off as an annoying problem somewhere on the edge, where the core of the organization is worrying about finance or, you know, how to get the next generation of tools and machines. Meanwhile, you're having a waste issue and people are like, can we just have this go away? It's an annoying problem. But if you look at it with a different mindset, saying the things on the edges are possibly, not guaranteed, are possibly indicators of where things might lie in the future, just possibly. And if you're looking at it with that mindset, you come up with the next big innovation, maybe, yeah? Or your odds are better than if you're looking just at the same question you've been asking your innovation department for the last 10 years.
Yeah, so I think, thanks Manoj, I think the edges kind of captures exactly what I wanted to talk about. So to me, the way I want the organization to re-strategize is to be nimble. And how do I remain nimble? Are you organic? Are you bringing in new approaches by the dozen? Are you participatory? Are you participating with your employees, your customers, your customer family members, your customer regulatory environment, your customer's ecosystem? Are you participatory? And finally, I think I need to re-strategize on the new customers that are coming in. In every business that we are operating, there's always a new wave of customers who come in, new set of mobile phone users, new set of app users, new set of television buyers, new set of car buyers, and they're coming in with completely different preferential set. So it's very important that are you ready for the new wave of customers. So if I were to re-strategize, I would be nimble, be organic, bring in new approaches, be participatory, and most importantly, I would be ready for the next wave of customers.